You like it? Jesus Christ, that's what you look like?
I know. I look like a fucking troll. And I mean, we finally get to see the can opening for the first time. I guess that's exciting.
It's legit. It was an actual can being opened for the first time in Saturday Night Jive history. Viewers can see what juice I'm drinking on.
Well, because up to this point, it's been a fake sound effect. So now we have the real thing.
Well, to call it a fake sound effect, I do it organically, but it ain't with a can. There's a certain part of my body that when I rub in a specific way, it sounds exactly like a can opening. I won't go any further into that. But that's how we've made it for 378 episodes so far.
I just want to set this up, because you're seeing people who have listened to this podcast before and are now watching this are seeing it in a much different way. I apologize in advance for the shittiness of my camera, the shittiness of my microphone. We're recording remotely again so we can experiment with this. And also just the shittiness of you seeing me right now.
This is for no one's benefit.
I don't know why you're doing it. And look how like it's not syncing up because my camera's so shitty. That would annoy the fuck out of me.
No, this is a miserable experience for us and for anyone who happens to be listening or watching to it. Welcome to Saturday Night Jive. The reason why we're doing this here is because we've recorded our podcast for 10 years illegitimately. So not in the way you should do it. And that thing broke. So now we can't post any more podcasts. So the only way we can do it is, I'm sure there's another way, but we decided on YouTube, because I've been playing around with the YouTube stuff, and we're doing this. This is our first YouTube edition of Saturday Night Jive. If this is your first time watching it and you're like, wait a minute, this is a Saturday Night Live podcast, and they're talking about Canadian bacon starring John Candy? You can dip into our older episodes at SaturdayNightJiveBlogspot.com, the website I have right up there. And you can listen to our old episodes where we talk about classic Saturday Night Live ephemera. You know, movies like House Guest, starring Phil Hartman, or Hail Caesar, starring Anthony Michael Hall. You know, the classics like that.
Also good movies sometimes. We watch good movies occasionally, not often. Usually we watch Canadian bacon. But we should say, we used to set everything up. Well, hopefully we still will. Archive.org got hacked. Why would you hack an online library, you fuckers? But I guess the episodes are available now, though, right? You can still listen to them again. You weren't able to listen to them for a while.
Yes, you can listen to all of our episodes. We can't post any new ones.
Yeah, because we can't log in. Of course, I haven't checked that in the last day or so. I don't know if that's changed or not, but at least as of this recording, as far as we know, we can't log into Archive to post new episodes. But that might change next week, so maybe this is an experiment that we never have to recreate.
This might be the only time we ever do this, and that's fine with me. Although I do want to show off for anyone viewing at home, starring Anthony Michael Hall. If you keep going, you'll find a framed poster of Hot to Trot, featuring SNL alum Gilbert Gottfried. And then even further down there is my poster of Boat Trip, starring Mr. Horatio Sands. So this is the Saturday Night Jive wing of my house.
And I've blurred my background so that you don't see all the stupid shit I've wasted my money on.
All right, so So Canadian bacon. Is this the time? Any more opening remarks?
Well, I thought
we've
before
covered
we even
why
get
we're
into,
here.
Well, because we're also recording this literally on the eve of the U.S. presidential election. We vote tomorrow. Well, I already voted, but people who haven't voted early vote tomorrow. And this is kind of it's a political satire. I thought, do you want to have any last-minute thoughts on the election?
No. I already voted.
I know your favorite thing to do is talk about politics on a podcast, so
no,
I just thought I'd ask.
I hate talking about politics. I already voted. I said this on our last episode, which hasn't been posted anywhere yet. But I get all the political ads on YouTube. That's the only time I ever see political ads, because I don't watch TV or anything. But they should know, right? My phone and my computer knows everything about me, except that I already voted and I don't need to see any more ads. But the weird thing I'm seeing about presidential ads now is the Kamala ads I'm not seeing anymore. Now I'm seeing the Trump ads. And my favorite Trump ad is, a vote for Sherrod Brown is a vote against Trump. And I'm like, hey, did the Democrats pay for this ad? And then it's like, this ad paid for by Trump. And I was like, oh, wait, no, that had the opposite effect. I'm double voting for Sherrod Brown if he doesn't want me to do it.
Our mutual father discovered a trick, by the way. Do you know how to block the ads as they come?
I do. I mean,
there's a little
say,
eye
like,
button.
Yeah.
I've been doing that and it skips the whole fucking ad apocalypse thing where it gets you right to your video. It's amazing.
Oh, really? It takes them all off. Oh, okay.
Or at least for that ad break.
Oh, okay. Because every time I see fucker's face, I go irrelevant. Hide this ad.
Oh, no, that's what I'm doing too. Yeah. So,
irrelevant.
Maybe it's different for me because I have a Roku TV. Maybe that's why it skips the ads. Maybe it doesn't do that on YouTube proper.
All right. So anyway, anything you need to add about what the fuck we're doing?
I mean, I thought you were asking about who I voted for. I'm not. I'm not going to say. Maybe I'm a secret Trumper. No, I got nothing. Canadian Bacon. I've always been interested in it. It's Michael Moore's only non-documentary movie, and that's the only really reason I wanted to watch it. And I regret suggesting it because it was not good.
Yeah, it was not good. Not in a bad... Like, it wasn't like, oh my god, I hate watching this. But as I was watching it, I was, like, the only thing I could think of is, like, this movie is nothing. Like, there's no reason this movie needed to exist in 1995, and there's certainly no reason it needs to exist in 2024.
Well, to be fair, the only reason it doesn't need to exist is because 2 years later, Wag the Dog came out, and this is basically Wag the Dog if it wasn't funny or interesting.
Yeah, this movie has two, like, competing premises and it does nothing with them, and then at the end of the movie it's like, oh, it's just the Animal House. We'll have Animal House picture credits with Wallace Shawn, and we need to talk about Wallace Shawn.
Well, yes, but watching this movie made me really wish that Wag the Dog had done kind of more of what this movie did, where it's like actually showing the people on the ground and how they're influenced by the propaganda, not just the people making it. Like, I actually think that is, on paper, a better way to do this kind of story that this movie did and Wag the Dog didn't. It's just Wag the Dog is funny and interesting and good.
Yeah. Well, let's break down this movie and figure out where it goes wrong. We start with a suicide. That's not good in a comedy, I think. That should be a rule. Like, if this movie's funny, don't have a suicide playing over the opening credits.
I disagree. I actually was getting into this movie at first. Like, that first 20 minutes where they established that there's a new role for the Niagara Falls, I don't know if they're the police or I guess they're the sheriff's office. The idea is if people always jump off and kill themselves on Niagara Falls, if you're able to talk someone down, it's $25 extra. You get paid $25 extra. But if you have to fish out their body, it's $50. And then they immediately cut to John Candy going, "Jump, jump," which that got a laugh out of me.
Yeah, an interesting setup for a movie, and also felt very Michael Moore-y. Like, oh, the factory's been shut down.
Yeah.
Where do these people who used to work at the factory go? They're making money off of their friends that they used to work of, and they're more valuable if they're dead. That's a very, like, Michael Moore joke, I feel. But it's not really a setup for the movie. It's just kind of there. Let's get into Michael Moore first. What are your thoughts on Michael Moore? Or where were you first introduced to Michael Moore?
How many images are in this fucking bullshit slideshow you set up?
240.
Jesus Christ. Well, sorry, what was your question about Michael Moore?
Michael Moore.
Am I as fat as Michael Moore? Is that your question?
Yeah.
Yes, I think so.
Is your goal to become two Michael Moores?
Pretty much, yeah. That was it.
When were you first introduced to Michael Moore?
I mean, I remember Roger and Me, like, being out and being a thing, but I was too young for it.
Same.
I feel like the first one where I was, like, old enough to appreciate it was Bowling for Columbine.
Do you remember TV Nation?
Was The Awful Truth also Michael Moore? Because that's the one I remember.
And the TV Nation was like a one-season thing on Fox, and then it spun into it got canceled, and then I think Bravo picked it up or something, but they renamed it The Awful Truth. So it was the same thing. It was kind of a Daily Show before Daily Show, which is why I liked it. And that's where I knew of Michael Moore. And then that's when I started going back and I watched Roger and Me. And I think the only other one he had out was The Big One, which was like, basically just like, it's a documentary of him on his book tour. And then he visits different cities and he goes to, like, factory closings and stuff. And it ends with him meeting Phil Knight from Nike. And asking him to make his shoes in America rather than in Thailand. It's only fun if you if you want to hang out with Michael Moore in a tour bus for 90 minutes.
This is gonna sound like a joke, but it's a legitimate question. Is he the big one that the title refers to?
You mean Phil Knight?
No,
Or
Michael Moore. Was he referring to his own ass?
There is some... I can't remember. There's a reason why it's called the big one, but I don't think it's because of his ass.
Well, because that was the alternate title of Roger and Me. It was Roger and My Big Fat Ass.
Have you ever seen a movie called Michael Moore Hates America?
No, I think I've heard of it. Is that the guy that he tries to do the right-wing version of Michael Moore?
Yeah, he's like doing...
interview him?
Yeah, he's trying to do Roger and Me, but he's trying to do Michael Moore, but it's... That would be a movie I'd be interested in rewatching and dissecting. But it's also like, who cares now? Because that movie was only relevant for a small window of time.
Speaking of right-wing Michael Moore parodies, the one I'm interested in, which I don't know if there's an SNL person... Well, there's the brother of an SNL person in it. An American Carol.
I could consider that a cheat pick for our show.
Really? Kevin Farley is, I believe, a Michael Moore analog.
I think if we haven't established the premise for any new YouTube listeners, this is a podcast where we talk about movies kind of Saturday Night Live related. And I think if it has a Farley brother in it, we're allowed to watch it. We should watch The Straight Story.
Yeah, no,
for no other reason. For no other reason than I haven't seen that movie in a long time and I want to watch it. But Kevin Farley's
I've never seen it. That's one of the few David Lynch movies I've never seen.
Might be my favorite David Lynch movie.
Really? That's the reason I've not seen it is because it doesn't look like one I would like. It just looks like, I mean, I don't know. Maybe post Twin Peaks: The Return, where I was getting a lot into like the Dougie Jones of it all. I think maybe I'll appreciate The Straight Story a little better. But
yeah, it's a David Lynch movie that doesn't seem like a David Lynch movie, but it's like as you're watching it, you're like, oh yeah, this is a David Lynch movie. Of course it is. There's just no like weird creatures that he doesn't pull like a fucking chicken head out of his lawnmower gas tank and go, "Whoa," and then it like turns into a bird and flies away. That doesn't happen. But there's still like weird David Lynch shit in it, just not overtly weird, which is why
I'd be up for that. Yeah. I mean, I do want to just point out, don't get so fucking pretentious that you think we're going to get new viewers from this YouTube episode.
Well, I'm saying there's probably not like, oh my god, this is gonna blow us up now that we're on YouTube. But there's probably someone who clicked on this who didn't know that we had 378 episodes of a podcast before.
Well, you were telling me before we started this. Oh yeah, I put up the Ching Chang episode. It got 250 views. It's blowing up. I don't think you know what blowing up means.
No, but like I was surprised by that in a day. A video I made about Ching Chang from SNL gets 300 views. I'm like, in a day? How many people are searching for Ching Chang daily?
And just to point that out too, because you've been experimenting with posting some of our old episodes to YouTube, and I noticed because I subscribed to your YouTube channel, and I say, oh, he put up all the Twin Peaks episodes. That makes sense. That's a series. The next one I fucking see is Carol, and I'm like, what the fuck are you doing?
Oh, I was doing the recurring character segments.
Yeah, no, I know, but you started with Carol.
No, I started with Ching Chang.
Oh, okay, Carol. Well, Carol was the first one I saw. Maybe I just didn't see Ching Chang.
No, Ching Chang is where all things start. And then I did Mango, but then the file got ruined. It was like a test one. So then I did Carol, and then I did Mango again. All right, Michael Moore. Anything else to say about Michael Moore? Do you like him? Do you like Michael Moore?
I don't mind Michael Moore. I think he can be a little overwrought. I generally align with his politics, which is the reason he's generally relevant to people. But and he's predicting Kamala Harris is going to win. So there's that.
So what's that matter?
Well, because
I can predict things
Trump
too.
might win, and he's saying no, don't fucking despair. He thinks Kamala's going to win.
I mean, hope's always a good thing. What's he been doing lately? The last thing I saw of his, I think, was that Trumpland movie he made in 2016. Which I thought was just like it wasn't a real documentary, so I didn't give a shit.
I don't even see, the last one I saw was it Fahrenheit, not 9/11, but the other one, Fahrenheit 11/9.
Oh yeah, I watched that one. That might have came out after that. But yeah, the past like 8 years during the Trump presidency, I don't think I have ever heard from Michael Moore.
Yeah,
He didn't make one movie during the Trump years.
When was the Capitalism one? Capitalism: A Love Story?
I think that was like 2008.
Oh, was it that old? I don't remember. I've never seen it. But yeah, I mean,
That's
he has a podcast, which I just
Oh,
discovered
okay.
because I was listening to his pre-election
Of
episode of
course.
it.
Of course he has a podcast.
So he's doing important work, is the point.
Exactly. Yeah, no, now that I think about it, I find that bizarre that, like, he was so prolific during the Bush years, and then during the Trump years, it's like, Michael Moore's not making movies anymore. But this is his only, what do you call this? Fictionalized film, written, produced, and directed by Michael Moore. Do you know any why did this happen?
No. I mean, well, because this was like the next thing he did after Roger and Me. Well, he did this and then Pets Are Meat, the short film, but...
which I think is basically a deleted scene of Roger and Me.
The only thing I can think of, because this has a tendency to happen, I feel like, with, if somebody breaks out with like an indie movie, whether it's a documentary or what, and then Hollywood comes sniffing, and they just probably came to him and said, "Hey, what do you have that's like a narrative feature?" And he pitched this. That's what I would assume. It's like nowadays that's the pipeline to like Marvel movies, where like you get a little indie movie and then you're directing fucking Thor 3 or whatever. I feel like that was the '90s equivalent of that.
Yeah, and that makes sense. Like, Roger and Me was not a huge... I mean, it was a big hit for a documentary. And then, it was relevant for a long time. So, yeah, it would make sense that a studio was like, oh, what other movies does the Roger and Me guy have? How about a fucking shitty-ass comedy?
Well, it's interesting because, it's the political satire element. Because, Roger and Me era... well, I guess I even like TV Nation era, Michael Moore... it wasn't really until like Fahrenheit 9/11 that I associated him with like presidential politics and that sort of level of it. Whereas this sort of, you get inklings of that early on. Whereas I think he was more about like the economic sort of saving the Rust Belt kind of thing.
That was always
this has
thing.
sort of elements of both of those.
Yeah, any factory closing, that was Michael Moore's bread and butter. Like, I didn't even think of him as like, I mean, he's definitely liberal, but like, I mean, it was also a different time then. Because like, I always thought all politicians were the enemies, So, like, he was making shit during the Clinton years, and he was saying, fuck you, Bill Clinton, because Bill Clinton was the president. And
I think the president in this is not meant to be a Republican. He's meant to be a Clinton-esque Democrat, I feel like.
I think Alan Alda's definitely doing a little Clinton. I did like... There were things in this movie I liked that seemed like they would be good, like, sketches for TV Nation. Like the... what we're seeing here is what's his name, Hacker. This is like the big weapons plant in Niagara Falls, and it's going out of business because there hasn't been a war, worth using big ass weapons in. And then they're just auctioning off all the weapons to just like guys who worked at the factory. So like this dude with no teeth gets like a big fucking cannon for $25, and then almost immediately shoots the president with it. Like, that's funny. That's a funny idea, but like, I don't know. For some reason in the movie, I wasn't really laughing at it.
Well, I was legitimately either laughing or at the very least sort of smiling for, I want to say, maybe even the first half of the movie. It's really not until they go on their mission to go to Canada that I feel like it just drops off, and like I was just not interested at that point.
This movie has very good setup, where it's like, ooh, there's a lot of interesting ideas here. But then you can clearly tell, like, around minute 40, where you're like, oh, they're not going to do anything fun with any of these ideas that they've set up. This is just a bunch of ideas.
A premise isn't enough. You also have to have a story. And like, I don't care that Rhea Perlman has been sort of accidentally held hostage by Canada, or kind of not. And like, but like, I'm supposed to feel like, I guess I'm supposed to feel something for their relationship by the end of the movie. I don't.
John Candy and Rhea Perlman?
Yeah. Like, their fucking epic friendship was supposed to be a thing I was invested in.
I could not tell you what John Candy and Rhea Perlman are doing together. I have absolutely no idea.
We should also say this is technically John Candy's last film. I guess Wagons East I guess this was the last one released, but Wagons East finished filming afterwards.
Yes, this movie sat on the shelf for like a year or two. So, and then it was released after his death.
I believe so. Well, Wagons East was released posthumously as well, wasn't it?
Oh yeah, so this was released like a year after his death, his final movie. All right, so what's the premise? Rip Torn's awesome. What's the premise of this? Is they need Kevin Pollak wants to start.
Okay, back in the 60s and 70s and into the 80s, there was a thing called the Cold War.
Right.
Now it's in the 80s, it's over because Reagan said, tear down this wall. And they were like, I guess we got to tear down the wall. So then they didn't have anybody to fight anymore to scare Americans because the Russians weren't an enemy anymore. So now they have to create a new enemy, and that's Canada. That's the plot.
Yeah, I'm trying to determine whether the setup that I just praised as being like good is actually good. So the president's like, oh, I my approval ratings are down. And Kevin Pollak and Rip Torn, who seem to be his only advisors and just hang out with him when he's taking naps and stuff, they're like, well, we need an enemy. And then if we just, because they try to get Russia to restart the Cold War, which I kind of thought was kind of fun, when they invite the Russian guy over to the White House and give him a big bucket of chicken.
Yeah, no, was that supposed to be Gorbachev, or I can't remember if he had a shit on his face.
No, they mentioned briefly he's just like the what do you call it? Like the new president of Russia, the guy who took over after the Cold War, but they don't say his name. Much like Alan Alda is just the president of the United States, he's never named in this film. Everybody else has a goddamn name.
I think the premise is solid. Honestly, I think if anything, there might be too much plot. Like that's the problem with the second half. Is like they are trying to make it like character driven. I think if this was more of, ironically enough, more like American Carol, more like a zany kind of Zuckersy movie, I think it would have worked a lot better.
It needed to be more. I almost hate to say this because I complain about this in every movie, but it needed to be more episodic. Like the things I liked about this movie were just like the little vignettes. Hold on, I think we're gonna get to it in our slideshow. But when the inciting incident happens, and basically they're looking for a new villain for America, just to kind of scare people into approving of the president, I guess, or whatever, they just decide on Canada, and they take to the news, and they're just like, everybody in Canada sucks. Canada's trying to take over fucking America's, and then Americans fall for us almost instantly, where we get scenes like this, where John Candy's like, all right, you guard the bowling alley, you guard the Piggly Wiggly, and you guys stand and guard this bar. And then we got like a guy with a shotgun next to the bowling alley. We got Bomb Canada signs, two old ladies in a fucking bunker. Like this shit, free guns. This shit was all funny, but it's just like a little aside. It's almost like a little Family Guy cutaway until they get to the main plot here, which is like, this movie doesn't need a villain in the guy who built the missile defense system that he knew was faulty, that he was just trying to make money out of Cold War scare tactics or something. Well,
that was the problem. Like in the back half of the movie, so much of it is devoted to like, oh no, are the nukes going to go off? Like this movie needed stakes. I don't think this movie needed stakes.
No, it should have been a fake. Like the invasion should have been fake. The better way to go with it is, they're all about, but John Candy and Rhea Perlman, they think it's real, and they're the only ones who think it's real, which is kind of it, but not kind of it. It's very muddled.
Well, plus they add the idea that there are actual nukes in this, whatever they call it, the Hellstorm or whatever. Like that's a real, in the context of the movie, that's like, it's adding a level of intrigue and tension, but you don't fucking need it.
No. Well, and then I guess the whole point is just the government's stupid. I mean, they created this problem. There wasn't a problem, but they just created a problem and made it a million times worse with their buffoonery. So yeah, they're trying to get Canada to fucking blame in. I think we're getting to the reason for the season here. What did you think of Jim Belushi?
Well, this was another thing that reminded me of Wag the Dog, because he also has a brief cameo appearance on a news program in Wag the Dog.
Well, in that he's playing himself, right? Because the joke is, they're going to war with Albania, and they're like, let's interview Jim Belushi because he's a famous Albanian.
But just the idea that like it's within the context of a news segment where he just shows up for one scene to be Jim Belushi. Like, that's just weird that both of these movies that have very similar plots also have that in common. Yeah.
Interesting cameo. It's just Jim Belushi just giving a news report about how Canada is going to wage war on the United States.
We should point out Dan Aykroyd also has a cameo in this.
Oh, we'll get to him in the slideshow. We're only at slide 93. I do want to talk about Rhea Perlman. Doesn't she look like just a little lady Danny DeVito?
That's a weird thing to say, considering they used to be married, right?
No, that's what I'm saying. Like, and then they got divorced. Can you think of two people more perfect for each other than fucking Danny DeVito and Rhea Perlman?
You're just basing that on their physicality. They may have completely diametric personalities.
I guess so, but like, look at this. Look at
no,
this.
I get what you're saying. Well, because it's weird, because it's like...
Doesn't that look like Danny DeVito in a wig right here?
Well, it's like you never think about it on The Simpsons, how Milhouse's parents look like brother and sister.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is very much like that, but in real life.
And I guess Milhouse's parents got divorced too, so maybe that's just a thing that doesn't work in real life. If you look too much like your significant other, it's just not meant to be. You think it's perfect.
Maybe that's what led to the divorce. Maybe they took a DNA test and found out they were brother and sister.
Maybe.
We can't be together anymore.
Or Danny DeVito, like in that scene in Disclosure when Michael Douglas is having sex with Demi Moore, and then he looks in the mirror and he sees himself. Maybe Danny DeVito was doing that, but then he looked in the mirror, thought he saw Rhea Perlman, and was like, "Hey, wait, that's me."
I feel like there are many other references of a guy looking in a mirror and being scared that you could have gotten to before Michael Douglas in Disclosure.
No, I think that's the only time that's been done in a movie. I think only time.
I think what it was is his character, the Penguin in Batman Returns, was based on his own children, and that made him think like, oh wait, maybe there is something going on here.
Oh man, no, I could not watch this movie and watch Rhea Perlman just run around the screen and go, my God, I can't think of another person more... Like, if I was a millionaire matchmaker and Danny DeVito came to me and he goes, hey, I'm looking for a lady, I'm like, I know the perfect thing.
And thing is the right word.
Turn on Cheers.
For some reason, I was thinking he was on Cheers. He was on Taxi. She was on Cheers. They weren't on the same show together.
I think...
Did those shows air...
No, they didn't air concurrently, but I think Danny DeVito appeared on Cheers, maybe. I don't know.
Are you confusing him with Dan Hedaya, who actually played, I believe, her husband?
I might be. I get my Dannys confused.
They look very similar, I would say.
Speaking of this scene with Rhea Perlman, the screenshots don't do it justice, but...
the fact that it's a weird flashback for no reason?
What did you think of this? This was weird. Because to catch
the audience
I had to
rewind it because I didn't understand what was happening. I thought they were cutting to her in Canada.
I did
and
too.
like that was what was happening. But no, it's just like it's him going like, "Oh, Rhea Perlman, I love you so much, and I got to get you back." And that never happens anywhere else in the movie.
No, we don't really know, except that they are good friends. And John Candy got Rhea Perlman the job because John Candy is the nephew of the mayor or something. So John Candy used to work at the factory that closed. It's like, what do you call that? Exposition at the very beginning of the movie. He's the mayor's nephew, so that's why he got the job as the sheriff. I think they're establishing that he's not really a qualified law officer. And then he got Rhea Perlman the job. So that's the only thing we know about their relationship. But then sometimes it seems like they're boyfriend and girlfriend. Sometimes it seems like they're ex-lovers. Sometimes it seems like they're just buddies. It's inconsistent. But they're getting back at Canada or something. Or, I think they're starting to... But basically, they're just littering. They think that's how you get Canadians mad, is just go to the border and dump a bunch of shit there. But then Mounties see them. They escape, except Rhea Perlman is left behind. And then there's this scene where Alan Alda as the president is like, the Canadians have captured an American. It's Rhea Perlman. John Candy sees this, and he has like a little flashback of
like
Rhea
a montage,
Perlman.
a flashback montage of how much he remembers liking Rhea Perlman.
Yeah, and not scenes we've seen. Like, it's not a flashback to like the beginning of the movie where they're sitting there at the dock calling the guy to jump. It's not that scene. It's Rhea Perlman smoking a cigar on the couch, arm wrestling a dude, and butting two heads together. And then John Candy sees this and he's like, "Oh, that's my best friend."
Yeah, It's weird. Well, again, we talk about this. This is Michael Moore's only narrative film, and I feel like you kind of get a sense of why he never made another narrative film again, because I don't think he had the sense of this kind of story, like building it as a director.
Yeah, the main problem with this film is Michael Moore's direction didn't bother me. I think this, for what the story is, it flows. Like, I can make sense of it. The screenplay is just real muddled and kind of goes all over the place. Again, yeah, two competing stories that you really don't care too much about. But some fun moments. I enjoyed when they broke into the Canadian Electro Dam just by opening the door, because nobody locks their door in Canada.
Yeah.
Which became a joke in Bowling for Columbine.
And it's just an old lady and an old guy that basically govern all of the electricity in Canada.
Yeah, so there's some good jokes here. But, I mean, I guess that is a fault in tone, is that when there are jokes like this, when they break into the Canadian Dam, and it's just an old lady knitting, and I think they're watching, they're just watching Moose on the TV. Like, that's funny, but it just kind of feels like jarring for the film, because the tone of the film doesn't makes for something that wacky.
I'm curious, what was the state of mockumentaries around this time? Like, when was Waiting for Guffman?
97. This was 95.
Because, I'm just thinking of, why not do this, but maybe that just wasn't really a thing at the time, or at least not to the extent that, he would have thought of it, to do this as a straight-up mockumentary as opposed to a narrative movie.
That would probably have been way better. Especially with the premise, and then you just kind of do it as you can use archival news footage of stuff. You can use interviews with people,
Do it like Ken Burns' Civil War or whatever, but because that's World War Z, not the movie, but the book is like that. It's interviews and stuff about the zombie war. Do that, but with the Canadian War.
Yeah. No, I think that would be a better choice, because there's some good gags in this, and like I said, if this movie was a little more episodic and had less of a structure, I think that would have been better. Which it makes it less of a film, but makes it a little more entertaining. The model for me is
Mars Attacks, I think.
Yeah,
where it's episodic, it's a bunch of different characters and stories, but you don't have to care about them or invest your emotions in them at all. They're just vessels for whatever the joke is of that scene, I think, and you get some of that with this, but. Yeah, I think he tried to make it too much of a movie.
Yeah. Stephen Wright's cameo, did you enjoy that?
No, not really. I don't know why. I like Stephen Wright as an actor. Well, actually, I wouldn't say I like Stephen Wright as an actor. That's wrong. I don't know that Stephen Wright even likes Stephen Wright as an actor. I like him as a comedian. But I don't think they used him to his full potential here.
Well, no, it's just a little cameo, but I enjoyed his scene. They think that he's the one who's got Rhea Perlman behind bars because he's a Mountie. But he's got 3 other people in jail, one for, I think, just being rude. And then this guy here who's I guess moved his company to Mexico and laid off all the employees. He's in Canadian jail.
I just think we've already seen the high point, the apotheosis of Stephen Wright film cameos in Son of the Mask. I don't think anything's going to top that.
Speaking of cameos...
Oh, yeah.
Moore makes a little cameo.
Who I feel like wasn't nearly as fat here as he was in his prime, and because he's lost a lot of weight now. He's probably about this weight now. So I feel like we're watching the beginning of the bell curve of Michael Moore's fatness.
I think this was about the size he was, maybe a little bigger than Roger and me. I mean, he's definitely always been expanding up until, I guess, when he started losing weight. But I really noticed it in Sicko. I remember thinking, ironically, this guy looks kind of unhealthy.
Well, that's because he lives in America with American healthcare.
That's true. Man, yeah, Michael Moore just looks like an American, doesn't he?
Well, no, yeah, he plays look. His cameo is a gun-toting redneck and that he fits that perfectly, even though you know him and you know he's not that at all, but...
Yeah, I did, and the satire, the part of this movie I enjoyed was the satire on the media, which would be totally different if they made this movie today, because in the universe of this film, there's only one news anchor who gives all the fake news. Today it would be 1,000 channels all picking up the Canadian story, and then half of them negating the legitimacy of the war and half of them supporting the war. So if there is any kind of political satire in this, it's definitely hella dated.
Well, that's actually was kind of interesting to me, because at first I was thinking, because Kevin Smith he wanted to do this thing called the True North trilogy. It was 3 movies all set in Canada, but he only made the first 2. He made Tusk and Yoga Hosers, and then he was going to do a third one called Moose Jaws, about a killer, like Jaws but with a moose, but it never got off the ground. But I was thinking, like, if you wanted to cap off that trilogy, remake Canadian Bacon, but for today. But the more I think about it, I don't know that you could make this today, because I think our view of foreign wars is completely the reverse of this. Like, I think we're so anti-war now, like, you know, it's the distaste of Iraq and Afghanistan. I don't think this would make sense as the reaction, even in like a satirical, you know, thing.
Well, I don't know. I think that's what the satire was pointed to in 1995 as well. Like, right?
Well, no, I think like back then, that was sort of the idea behind Grenada in the 80s, or even Iraq in the 90s, the first Iraq War. I think there was a knock of that, like they're just waging war just to wage war, just for their politics, because you never go wrong in a presidential poll, you know, if you're the commander in chief and you look strong. Whereas I don't think that's the case today, at least in terms of foreign wars. I think they are always a negative. I think if, you know, President Harris, or God forbid President Trump in the next term, starts a war anywhere, there's not going to be like a rally around the flag effect, which is the idea behind this.
Yeah, no, I'm trying to think of when that changed. Because, yeah, like, I remember the Gulf War. It probably wasn't until Iraq 2 was such a cluster F. Because, yeah, like, when I was a kid, it was rah, rah, rah America for the first Persian Gulf War. Like, I don't remember anybody saying we shouldn't have been in that conflict.
Well, I think 9/11 changed all of that. Well, not just 9/11, but the fact that it's not just those wars, but they went for over 10 years, and we just got fucking sick of them. And I think that's a completely opposite paradigm now.
Yeah, it's weird. Like, war was always popular until we were attacked and waged war on the wrong country, and then people were like, "Oh, wait a minute."
Isn't that weird?
Maybe not all wars are good. What else? Oh, wait. Now we're getting into the potatoes of our dinner. If Jim Belushi was the meat.
I like that you're pretending that we're like following along with this screenshot or the thing in any disciplined way.
Oh, not really. I'm just going through. But here's our side dish of Dan Aykroyd.
Another fun scene in the movie, I think.
Yeah, I did like this scene. He pulls them over because, they're driving a truck that they graffitied, like, Canada sucks on, and you think they're going to be in trouble or something. But the joke is, he just needs them to put it all in French as well to appease the people from Quebec and French Canada.
No, yeah, that's a good joke. But this is another weird thing too. Just the Canadian kind of lore of this movie. I was just watching a YouTube video. Somebody was talking about how, like, he's a Canadian YouTuber, and he was talking about Canadian culture as opposed to American culture and how they view each other. And one of his points was, like, so much of, like, what they consider, like, Canadian identity is just, like, shitty American stereotypes. Like, the idea that all Canadians are nice, or they all say a boot, or, you know, or maple syrup, all this shit. Like, that's, like, shit we made fun of Canadians about, and I guess they've just taken it on as, like, oh, no, that's us, and isn't that how we're fun and nice? And he was like, well, why is it's weird that our identity is defined by these jokes. And I was expecting more of that in this movie. I was expecting more Canada nice or Canada whatever. But I feel like we didn't really get a lot of the Canadian side of it as much as I was expecting.
No, it's like dispersed throughout the film where, like, you know, with the Stephen Wright cameo and the Dan Aykroyd cameo, where they're just very, very pleasant. Even if you have a gun in their face, they'll be like, oh, how are you? Like the Mounties who catch them littering are just like, oh, you better turn around from whence you came. But you would think, like, this war is not one-sided, right? Canada has the news. They can see that America's, like, talking shit about them 24/7. No?
I mean, that would be kind of a funny joke if they brought that up and then the Canadians were just like, you know, no, we don't get American news up here. We didn't know what was going on. Like, they had no fucking idea.
War, eh? Before we move off of Dan Aykroyd, my favorite part of his cameo was the very end when, after he sees the The spray-painted truck is now in English and French to appease Quebecan law. He just gives a satisfied, I've done my job here, eh?
Yeah.
Fucking Rhea. And then, Rhea Perlman wakes up. Because she got kidnapped. Or not kidnapped, she got... but the joke is she has excellent health care for free because she's been... not kidnapped. What do you call it? Captured.
Well, she's
by
a
Canadians.
Prisoner of war.
Yeah. But she's in a nice hospital with teddy bears from Gordon Lightfoot. But she breaks out and goes out on a gun thing. Did you understand this Omega Force thing? I didn't really understand.
I don't know if it was a reference to anything specific other than like Delta Force and that kind of thing. It was just like a special forces operation. I don't think there was anything more to it.
Yeah, well, it was just like, and it was another joke that kind of went nowhere. At halfway through the movie, I
did like that joke where they say, it's the law that you can't send Omega Force after Caucasians.
Yeah, that's in the Constitution or something. But yeah, they send like the American Special Forces. And I thought it was supposed to be like we were going to see a juxtaposition of, the American military and the Canadian military or something. But then like they just kind of disappear. But like sporadically throughout the movie, they're just like spelunking off Niagara Falls and shit.
And it didn't come to anything. Was there even a thing where like they all got wiped out or something that I missed? Maybe
they chased John Candy up the stairs of the thing, and then they like give up because I guess John Candy can run up 10,000 stairs, but the American military can't. I guess
was
that's
thinking,
a joke.
Was there a scene where like they all fell off the building or something, and I missed it?
No, I think the last time you see them, they're just down at the bottom of the stairs giving up. All right, yeah. Do you want to talk about the like what do you call this in the script? The fake climax that they just kind of bring in like 20 minutes left in the movie.
I
then
don't
we go to
because
DEFCON 4.
It shouldn't be in the fucking movie.
I know this is supposed to be the most exciting part of the film. The villain has just released a whole bunch of fucking missiles that are gonna like destroy the planet, and I'm just watching this like I don't care who are any of these people. Especially
because you would think that they would try to intersect the two stories directly, where like John Candy and his group get to the White House and have to interact with the president, and then like he has to give away the game that no, this was fake, and like some accountability for that, like something that would make those storylines justify being in the same movie.
Yeah, the only reason they connect is because the villain has placed it in the Canadian big giant super tower that Rhea Perlman's obsessed with. So that's where she goes with a big giant gun. I think just to wage war on Canada. She's not going up. It's happenstance that they're in the same place. But he sets off the thing. The missiles are about to explode out of the thing. She happens to be there and shoots the thing up, and that's how the stories converge, and then immediately end.
Well, you say
this movie is
so
anticlimactic.
That's another thing I was wondering if I missed something. Is there a reason why she's in Toronto? Because there's a joke in the Stephen Wright scene where they go, where are they keeping Rhea Perlman? He goes, they're keeping her at the Capitol. And they go, Toronto. And he goes, no, the capital is Ottawa, which I'm assuming is true. I don't know. I would assume Toronto myself.
Oh, yeah.
And then joke is they're going to the wrong place. But then she's just there anyway. And I couldn't remember if there was a line that established why she wasn't in Ottawa.
Maybe I missed something. Because, that does seem... Or it's just a joke and they went to the same place. I don't know, but she seems to be obsessed with this giant building. And I guess, she's just up there. She's like, I'm going to take this war into my own hands. But she hears... because she sees that it's hacker's equipment.
Yeah,
and so that
the
sets her off. So then she just kind of blows it all up. And the DEFCON 4 is over. Everybody's happy. And we get picture credits at the end.
Well, that was another funny joke, by the way, when you said she's obsessed with the tower. At one point, the black guy comes in and she's doing like the Close Encounters thing where she's building it out of mashed potatoes, but it's the giant Canadian tower. And he, of course, assumes it's a dick, and he goes, I've never seen a white one that big.
Yeah. What did you think of the black guy in this movie? Where it just seemed like his whole character was to make jokes about him being black.
Well, I mean, it sounds worse when you say it like that. He's the guy, he's making the joke, which I wonder if this is like the first cinematic example of referencing the fact that black guys always die first in movies.
Maybe.
I can't
'Cause
remember
Scream
that
was,
being, yeah.
well, I don't even know if that's in Scream, but like Scream was 97.
Well, like there was a whole movie based on that called The Blackening, like either last year or a couple years
Right,
ago.
right.
But I know that was a thing in like once like the late '90s is kind of when like these kind of meta movies that talk about movies
Yeah.
kind of started. But this is a little bit before that, and I was kind of surprised by that they have that whole conversation about black guys dying in movies.
It was probably like a joke that stand-up comedians were doing. This might be
Maybe.
one of the earliest movie references, because I know they talk about Samuel L. Jackson in Jurassic Park, and I know I've heard like that being the reference of black guys are always the first to die in movies.
Well, and they reference Forrest Gump, and I looked that up. Forrest
Yeah.
Gump hadn't even come out yet. They looped a line in to add it in.
They're like, hey, good news or bad news is Canadian bacon is on the shelves. It's going to be delayed. Good news is we can add in ADR of a Forrest Gump reference, because that'll bring the people into the multiplexes if they don't want to see dead John Candy star in a film.
I feel like the black guy in this movie is like he's one of those like it was okay in the '90s, but like you couldn't really get away with that now. It would be cringe.
Oh, absolutely. They have a whole campfire scene where they're just going, hey, this guy's black. Let's talk about him in like a meta way, where we'll talk about the Dirty Dozen, and we won't remember that Jim Brown was in the Dirty Dozen. He's the only one there. Yeah, every joke, it's never mean-spirited. It's just in that 90s way of he's the token black guy, so that's what he's there for.
When there's also a joke where they talk about like, are you gonna like pass yourself off as Canadian as if there aren't black Canadians?
Right. I think that joke made me laugh. There was a joke that made me laugh where I think they were like, why would we attack them? They're whiter than us, or something like that. But yeah, some good jokes, some good scenes, some good set pieces, but just not doesn't work as a movie when you put all those things together. Because you need to have a plot and characters you care about.
Well, you either need to have a plot and characters you care about, or you need to go out of your way to like realize that you don't want that, and make it even sillier. Like you don't care about the characters in Airplane, but it's still a great movie.
Exactly. I will say the other thing, before we get to the end, I enjoyed all the performances. I thought John Candy was good.
Fucking amazing cast. Alan Alda, John Candy,
Rip Torn.
Rip Torn's fucking great.
Friggin' Rip Torn. Yeah, I wonder if Michael Moore did that intentionally. He was like, well, this is the first time I'm directing something. I'll just get really good fucking actors and, like, they'll make me look okay. Like, Rip Torn's not gonna fuck up a scene.
I feel like that's what I would do if you just like made me direct a movie. I'd be just like, I'll just get a lot of good people to make me look good, and nobody will realize that I don't know what the fuck I'm doing.
Yeah, no, excellent cast in this. Even John Candy, I like,
What's wrong with John Candy? I like John Candy.
I don't know. Every time we watch a John Candy movie, I'm like, why was this guy in movies?
But that's because we watched Wagons East and Delirious. Maybe if we watched like Planes, Trains, and Automobiles.
Absolutely. Well, yeah, that's a fucking magical performance. I did like the final joke where earlier in the film they go look at Canada and they see it and they're like, oh, it's like Albany but cleaner. And then at the end of the movie they're going back to America and they see the like fucking
pollution and shit.
Yeah. But they're still wistful. They're like, it's good to be home. But then the movie ends like Animal House, just like boom, hard cut to John Candy's now on cops.
Yeah, no, it's weird, but it's also like to be expected for a movie. I feel like I don't know if this is technically true of Animal House itself, but I feel like this kind of ending, I mean, on top of referencing Animal House, it's the thing you do when you didn't have a structure and you're just like, what the fuck? I guess we'll just find out what all the characters did, because did you care?
Yeah, we have no ending. We don't really care how we end the movie, so we'll just put a fucking text underneath their face. And like pretty much every time we've seen this in a film, it's not funny. It's just kind of ends the movie on a big fucking letdown. Rhea Perlman was the NRA's Humanitarian of the Year. Alan Alda was defeated in the election, now hosts a morning show. Kevin Pollak was pardoned by President Ollie North.
Yeah.
Rip Torn killed himself when he found out Hogan's Heroes was fictitious.
I laughed at that one.
This motherfucker. Who is this guy? And I want him in every movie.
The only thing I know him from... Well, I think wasn't he in the Jerky Boys movie?
That was it! I remember, I was like, we've seen this guy in a movie, and when we saw him in that movie, I'm like, what do I know this guy from?
Well, he's also the villain in a movie that I'm going to put on a cheat pick at some point, Bushwhacked.
I don't know if I've ever seen that one, but maybe I recognized him from Canadian Bacon, but he was fantastic in the Jerky Boys movie.
I liked him in this, too.
Yeah, if I can praise one element of the Jerky Boys movie, it's this dude who's also in Canadian Bacon.
I mean, Alan Arkin was also not too bad in Jerky Boys.
Oh yeah, it had William Hickey as well. But then, what's up with this? Final image of Canadian Bacon. We end with Wallace Shawn, who has not been in the film.
I'm assuming he was cut from the film.
He is Canadian Prime Minister Clark MacDonald is still ruling with an iron fist. This character was not in the film.
No. Well, it's a reference to the fact that they have the nuclear thing in their tower, so I guess he has control of it now. But yeah, this presumably was a deleted scene, and they forgot that they deleted it, and they said, oh yeah, that's right, we referenced the fucking Canadian Prime Minister, and we cast Wallace Shawn. Let's fucking do something with it.
And, normally I would say, well, this is a bizarre, stupid thing to just put a picture of Wallace Shawn at the end of your movie when Wallace Shawn hasn't been in your movie. But it's not even in, like, the top 20 weirdest end credits things we've seen. It's not even in the top 2 of weird Wallace Shawn ending credits we've seen.
I mean, I don't know what you're referencing there.
I'm referencing Furry Vengeance.
Oh, was Wallace Shawn in that?
He was Brendan Fraser's psychiatrist.
I didn't remember that. I was going to reference Furry Vengeance as well, but yeah, I forgot Wallace Shawn was also involved in that.
But yeah, just a weird way to end your movie. With just a picture of Wallace Shawn, who, so far, this is the only time we've seen Wallace Shawn.
Because, yeah, I was zoning out around the third act, so I had to rewind and go, like, did I fucking miss Wallace Shawn in this movie?
Yeah, I wonder if we, like, I should have watched the end credits to see if he was billed.
No, he was. I did. I saw it.
He had to have been.
And then the last scene is they're on the boat, supposedly going home to America, but they're about to drive off of Niagara Falls, which feels like the ending to the zany Zucker version of this that I want it to be, not the actual movie we got.
Yeah, definitely, not a terrible film, but not a movie anyone ever really needs to watch.
No.
There's a reason nobody remembers that Canadian Bacon was a movie, and there's good reason for that. Anything else about Canadian Bacon before I guess I'll spin the wheel?
No, but I'm also curious, have you ever seen the Second Civil War?
No.
It's a Showtime original movie around the same time, I want to say, mid-90s. And I think it has, I want to say Phil Hartman maybe as the president, which is why I knew about it. But it's also directed by Joe Dante, one of my favorite directors. But it's one of the rare Joe Dante movies I've never seen. But it's the idea is it's like in the future, and immigration is like an even bigger, well, I would say an even bigger crisis. It's a crisis because it's not a real crisis in real life. You're just a racist asshole if you hate immigrants. But the idea is like there's a state that wants to, what is it, make them illegal or something? I can't remember, but it's like a similar kind of thing where it's like a national standoff, but like a political satire. But look it up because I believe Phil Hartman is the president, and I feel like we should probably watch that.
All right. Well, speaking of things we should probably watch, let's see if I can do this in real time because I forgot to do it when we started.
Oh, I notice your thing is slowing down, so it's already taxing your computer speed.
Yeah, it totally is. But we need to see this fucking wheel. We need to see this wheel real. Now,
it doesn't count unless we're seeing the wheel.
Hardcore listeners of Saturday Night Jive have heard tale of the wheel, but they've never seen the wheel in action. This is when they get to see the wheel. This wheel has options of movies, SNL episodes, and SNL recurring characters that we could watch for the podcast. Some put on the wheel by me. Some put on the wheel by Ben. Some put on the wheel by our listeners. if anyone wants to add some shit to this wheel, email us at SaturdayNightJivePodcast@gmail.com.
Yeah, and let's hope we don't get 3 to tango again.
Well, that's impossible because I removed it. But I am going to
say
spin
that,
this
but
wheel.
You probably fucking snuck that shit back on.
All right, let's see. And Stuart Saves His Family. But
that's a me pick, so we got to skip it since this was
we
also
have decided, yes. Canadian Bacon was a Ben pick, so we will spin again until we get a George pick or an audience request.
Well, to be fair, you could, if you wanted to watch Stuart Saves His Family, we could ignore that role, but I don't think you want to watch Stuart Saves His Family.
I also don't want to watch Abraxas, Guardian of the Universe.
I feel like Fate just wants to watch another Ben movie.
It was your idea. I was just going to let the wheel decide and let Fate.
This was not my idea. This was your idea. My idea was that we replace it, and if your thing gets picked, I get to add the next replacement.
Well, we're watching the RuPaul hosted episode of Saturday Night Live next week.
Is that a you pick or a?
That is a request from a listener by the name of Corbin. So Corbin, congratulations.
Oh, I assumed Corbin was the musical guest, and I just never heard of them.
No, Corbin is the name of the person who requested that. So next week we will be watching RuPaul host Saturday Night Live with musical guest, I believe, Justin Bieber.
That makes it so much better.
I'm not going to like this. I'll tell you that right now.
Do you have any... I don't know if the requester, Corbin, said anything, but any reason why you think this might be notable?
Not notable. If memory serves me correct, he requested it just because it's an episode of modern SNL, which I'm on record of not liking.
How recent was this one?
It was like right before COVID. I think it was
really? Wow.
Yeah, I think it was like January 2020. It was like,
I mean, I'd be kind of I'd be more interested. Did they do any like actual COVID like shit during it where like they had to like stand away from each other?
Yeah, they did 3 at-home specials at the end of that season, and then the next season they came back and it was live, but they had like there was no live audience, or the live audience were like nurses or something, or like whatever you call that. What was the term for when the people we cared about in COVID?
It wasn't
essential
workers. Yeah.
So they would have the audience there, and they were pretty bad episodes. But
I'd be kind of curious to watch at least one of those just to see.
They were doing their best. But yeah, this RuPaul episode was right before COVID. He also suggested it because he said he was also a straight man who watches RuPaul's Drag Race.
Oh, I genuinely thought you were going to finish that with he's a straight man who realized he was gay watching the RuPaul episode of SNL.
No, but spoiler alert, might happen next week. All right. I'm just not going to... I don't remember what's in that episode. I just put it on the wheel because it was a listener request. I don't think I'm going to like it.
It's interesting. RuPaul on SNL. I think that's, a curiosity.
It's also going to be like fucking Pete Davidson and shit. Like, I'm not going to enjoy it. Well, we'll see. I might. I don't remember. Like I said, I don't remember anything about that episode other than I watched it live and I remember going, ugh. Because that's my opinion of a lot of SNL episodes. Except the last one with John Mulaney. I enjoyed that one.
Oh, I haven't watched it yet. It was good?
Except it was like... Yeah, but it was just a repeat of everything else.
I saw the one sketch I saw on YouTube was the What's That Name, which I'm fairly certain is one they ripped off from themselves from several years ago.
That John Mulaney wrote the original one like fucking 20 years ago, and then they keep bringing it back every now and then. They also redid the musical sketch. They kind of did a switcheroo sequel, but it was a different...
I'm kind of curious about.
It wasn't really switcheroo. It was a fake switcheroo. The sketch started in the same like 2-shot as the switcheroo, and I'm like, oh, they're doing the switcheroo, but then it's not switcheroo, and he's a different guy. It's just kind of the same format of a guy who made a TV show that wasn't good. And then they redid something else. Yeah, they brought back a lot of shit, but they did have a short film about a monkey astronaut that I will give thumbs up to, and a commercial for a guy running for senator named, what was his name? Harvey Epstein. John Mulaney played Harvey Epstein running for senator, and the whole commercial was, I know I have 2 bad names. And then people going, hey, he deserves a second chance. It's my first chance. I didn't do anything. I'm just named Harvey Epstein.
Did they bring back Monkey Judge? That was my favorite sketch from the last one.
No Monkey Judge. But I'm sure when John Mulaney hosts for the 7th one, they'll bring that back. All right, any closing thoughts on Canadian Bacon before we...
No, I mean, honestly, it's weird. As much as was down on the movie as we talked about it, I feel like I would still kind of recommend it just as a curiosity of the time. Like, I don't regret watching it. I didn't like it. I didn't enjoy it as a movie, but I'm glad that I have seen it as sort of a time capsule of its era.
No. Disagree. I wouldn't recommend this at all.
I mean, I wouldn't recommend it to if you're just looking for a fun comedy, I wouldn't recommend it. But if you're kind of curious as to like the politics of the time, I feel like it's kind of a weird, look into that. And I think that is that was kind of interesting to me. I mean, it's interesting to me because I grew up with it, but it was like I wasn't engaged with the politics of that time. So I'm seeing it from a different perspective. But, so I don't know. Maybe if you're exactly like me, maybe you'll be curious about it.
But if that was the case, there would be 10 other things I would recommend before this. Wag the Dog being one of them. And then just watch fucking Michael Moore's TV Nation. There's some good shit in that. There was some good shit in that.
I'm gonna look that up and see if that's available anywhere, because I would like to rewatch that.
It might be. Yeah, like I said, it was like Daily Show before Daily Show. I always enjoyed it. And it got canceled. I think it was only meant to be on one season or something. Anyway, that's all I got. Anything else?
That's it.
All right,
we're gonna reveal the secret thing that we do visually at the end of this podcast every time that the podcast listeners haven't seen.
You mean me running to the bathroom because I got to take a pee?
Yeah, that's that.
Okay, and get off the shed.